Number one, I want to welcome online again. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll come sometime and be a part of it, but we thank you for joining us. We'll love on you as long as you'll let us. Thank you for giving, Catalyst. We've not only done a lot of ministry in 2020, but we've done a lot of ministry, and next week will be 3 years. Y'all know that, right? 3 years. Man, God has blown my mind. I was telling Sarah, baby girl, my daughter, we were driving into the church this morning. I was like, it's still surreal because God has done so much that never could have happened without so many people, so much supernatural favor that is straight from God. It isn't coincidence, and our family has grown so much, and it's just starting. We got a lot of work to do. Thank you for being a family that invests in it, takes it seriously, that it's not a burden to give, it's a blessing to be a part of. We love y'all, and we are a family, and it's a beautiful family. I want to tell y'all it is perfect timing for the Donor family because I want to tell you their story. I want to tell you their story. That's why Derek didn't really talk a lot about it because it was the intro to my message. Shavanda and Myron and Sierra came to Catalyst within the first few weeks of us starting at our old location, which we call 911. When I refer to 911, that's the old bar nightclub that we renovated to a church beside Little Caesars. That's 911. This is 1103. At 9/11, there were several weeks in, they started coming. I think it was about that summer. We started in January. That summer, Shavanda contacted me and basically said, you guys talk about next steps all the time. And she was like, our next step is this. Here's the deal. Myron and Shavanda were together for a decade. They had Sierra together, who you saw, that beautiful girl. Y'all think Sierra's beautiful? I do. That girl is intelligent. They had a decade-long relationship, and they came to me, and Shavanda said, our next step is simple. We're going on a cruise. She contacted me on a Tuesday. We're going on a cruise on Thursday, and we want to be married on that cruise. Now, that was their next step. They had been together a decade. They were going to do life together. They knew nothing, it was going to work out, and they said, it's time for us to take God seriously, and our next step is to get married. So I showed up on a Wednesday evening. I think it was like a 6 p.m. And 9/11 wasn't just an old bar nightclub. It wasn't just a church. It was a one-time wedding venue. And I officiated Myron and Shavanda's wedding, and Sierra was right there with them. Let me tell you something about that. Since then, they have consistently, even when they're not here, a lot of Sundays they're not because Myron works 6 days a week, gets home late Saturday night, and leaves out first thing Monday morning, sometimes Sunday night. Shavanda, when they come, Myron has told me she will jerk him up out of bed and say, we ain't watching online today. They took God seriously. They had always believed to be able to buy a house together. They consistently invested, not just invested in this place, they took part in it with us, even from a distance in some seasons. They took God seriously and took that first step. A few months ago, I got a text from Myron and Shavanda that said they got to close on a house and they had believed God for so long. And they are better and better and growing because they took God seriously and took their next step. And I want you to know that because it's not complicated. You're looking and you're overthinking your situation and you think that your next step or taking God seriously and not stopping is complicated. It's not. You've got to be honest with your story and you've got to look at your life and you've got to be honest with what your next step is. You've got to be honest with what does it look like for me to take God seriously? What does it look like for me to take him up on the promises? For Myron and Shavanda, they said, we're going to do this the rest of our life and we want to commit to God and take it serious. What does it look like for you? I want you to know today I'm going to preach a message that is very simple. Very simple. This is not a complicated message. Matter of fact, that's my title, just so you know. It's simple. No cute titles today. It's simple. I'm not going to preach anything complicated, but it has the potential to change your life. It has the potential, if you will live by the simple principle I'm going to preach, it has the potential to change the trajectory of your entire life and where you're going, where you're headed. It's easy. It's not easy. It's simple. What I'm about to preach, a caveman could comprehend it, but a caveman could never do it. A lot of people can preach this message. I know there's a lot of people out there that can preach it more eloquently and probably better than me, but it takes something special to walk out what I'm about to put out. But if you do, it will simplify things so that you can see what's next and go for it and take God seriously. We've been able to reach a lot of people online. So I want you to share this video, because we've reached a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that need to hear it. So share this message. And on weeks when it's speaking to you, go share it again midweek and say, it's still talking to me. Give somebody hope. Y'all ready to dig in Scripture? Not a long intro this week. We're digging right in. We're going to 2 Kings chapter 4. This is a story from the life and ministry of Elisha. Elisha, if I ADD out and say Jah, just know it's Shah. Elisha. I want you to focus as I read this story. I want you to focus, but I want you to focus on what I read. I want you to focus on your story. Because the details of this story are way different than the details of your life. But the principles, if you will apply them to your life and your story, you will not only take your next step, you will never stop, and God will never stop working in you and through you. The details may be different, but the principles aren't. And I promise, if you want to leave this earth one day having left no potential and promise behind. Here we go. Stand with me. Matter of fact, can we stand? Not out of respect. If you can't stand, that's fine. Stay seated. Be comfortable. But I want us to take this seriously. I want to focus. 2 Kings chapter 4. I'm going to take you through it. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elijah, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as slaves." What happened is this husband was a prophet. He died and he was in debt. And back then, when you died and left debt, they would take your kids as slaves to pay the debt that you owed. It wasn't like now. And so she was going to Elijah and saying, I've got a shortage and I'm going to lose my family if something doesn't happen. What do I need to do? Elijah replied to her, "How can I help you? This right here, you need to change your life. Whatever, this right here, you need to know that God is saying this to you every day." Elijah says, "Tell me, what do you have in your house?" She talked about she doesn't have enough, and God says, or Elisha says, "I know what God's working with. I want to know what you're working with." Look at your neighbor and say, "What are you working with?" Elisha says, "I know what God can do. I know that your life has been broken. I know that God can do the impossible. What I want to know, sweetheart, is what you got that you can give. I want to know your effort. I want to know what you think you're working with." Elijah replied to her, "Tell me, what do you have in your house?" Here it is. We do this all the time. She said, "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except," look at the person behind you and say, "except." "I got nothing, Elisha. I got nothing. You think you don't have anything? You don't think you're special and significant? Except what you do have. Except a small jar of olive oil." Seems meaningless, right? How can she pay her debts with one jar of oil? Elisha said this. Oh, I see what you're working with. Here it is. "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside, shut the door behind you and your sons, pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side." She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. God took what she was working with and worked it. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." You to see that what she brought is what she got. Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Now go sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons live on what is left. If you will apply what I'm about to put out there today, you will not just have enough in your life. You will have more than enough, because the promise of God is not just enough. As you're seated, I want you to fist bump 3 people and say, bring it. Y'all know Jesus is awesome, right? The way we act may run people away, but Jesus is awesome. And let me tell you what is as awesome as the love of Jesus, is the fact that Jesus never held back. He never held back. And I promise you, Catalyst Church, that you will never move, and you will never be able to move. So you will never be able to step and not stop stepping. You will never be able to create momentum in your life. You will never be able to make anything that matters matter holding back. I'm going to tell you that. You will never be able to make your life matter holding back. This widow is in a situation, and we are going to learn what she did, because we need to apply it. She's in a situation, her life is broken, and she owes a debt. It was not her fault. It was not her fault. Some of you are sitting there, well, my situation is my daggone fault. Same principle is called grace. Even if you cause the situation you're in, God's grace and love is still enough if you'll apply. Her situation was broken. She had to pay the debt, or her sons were going to pay the debt with their lives. There was a deficit in her life. And a lot of people may not like what I'm about to say. But every one of us in our lives, in certain seasons, probably a lot of us in every season, we are at a place where there's a deficit. There's a shortage. There's not enough to do what you're believing God for. There's a deficit. There's a shortage. You lack what you need. You may be in a situation right now where you are short. You don't have what you need. Whether you contributed to it, created it, or it just happened. You may be in debt because of some poor financial decisions. You may be alone because people left you. You may be grieving because somebody died who had an irreplaceable place in your heart. You may have a learning disability that it takes you longer to comprehend and understand and apply what the teacher's putting out. Every one of us have a place in our life. We have parts of our life where there is not enough. There are times when Psalms 23 doesn't make sense in our lives when we're looking at our situation. Psalms 23, if you don't know, David was crying out as he was running for his life. He says, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. The Hebrew translation says, I shall not be in lack. And if you're honest with your situation, you are looking in the face, or have or will, that Psalms 23 makes no sense. You need God to come through. You need something. You need something from Him, and you were short. And this widow is right there with you. There's times in your life where you can speak faith all day. You can do the whole proverb, speak those things as not as though they are. But nothing is going to change because you were short, because God is asking you to take your next step. I'll preach on the real context of that scripture in Proverbs one day. There comes a time. And this widow, it was that time. And I want to show you today what she did, that if you will do, God will blow your mind. If you will do, we are going to take piece by piece what this widow did, because God will do for you what He did for her. If you will let Him. Whatever your deficit is. You may look at your situation and there's not enough money in the bank. Whatever your situation is, we're about to learn from this widow. There was a deficit, because how you handle whatever you lack matters. Y'all ready to learn? I know we don't have Lawrence in here, so all y'all are quiet and timid. I'm going to tell you something. You got to talk to me today, because I got something. Number one, I want you to know this straight up. This woman went to the right source. She went to a trusted prophet who was friends with her husband, probably, her late husband. You are confused because you were going to everybody for affirmation, advice, and approval. You wonder why you can't get good input because you go to people who aren't good for you to get good advice. Do you know why you're confused? You're going to the wrong source and it's making you more stressed out. You're going to social media. You want affirmation, you want approval, you want advice. You don't go to social media when you need some trustworthy advice. You go to social media when you want to be confused because you can't read people. You can't read people when you're face to face because you're so insecure. How do you think you're going to read their likes and comments? You go to your ex who rejected you and you just want that 5 minutes of peace because you're still not over what they did to you. You still don't know why they did it. And you go to them and you want advice and you want input and it may give you 5 minutes of peace, but I promise it'll follow with at least hours of confusion. You go to friends who have proven to you that they betray your confidence and you tell them your dreams. Quit telling everybody your dreams. You know, there were years at our old church that a handful of people, pretty much nobody knew that God had put on our heart to plant a church. Because discretion is important. You don't have to hold back. But if you give your trust to everybody, you need to quit going to the wrong source. Well, I know a lot of you are thinking the Proverbs, there's a wisdom in a multitude of counsel. There's just more stupidity to drown in a multitude of stupidity. A wisdom in a multitude of counsel is what this woman did. She went to a man that her husband trusted, Elisha, for advice. Number one, quit going to untrustworthy people for trusted advice. Quit going to people who were just as broken in the situation you need advice in. They're not on a level above you. They have no more experience. They haven't beaten whatever and you're going to them because they're comfortable. You go to the wrong source, you're going to end up empty. You're going to end up empty. There's some good things God has given you that it's not time to divulge yet. Number one, that's the thing. And she goes to Elijah, and Elisha is the right source. And Elijah says, what you working with? You got 1 jar of oil? It may seem like enough, not enough, but it's enough. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go. I want you to borrow as many jars from your neighbors. I want you to get this. This is a principle that is so simple. I want you to go, and I want you to borrow as many jars as you can. You go get what you want from God. You trust me to fill it, but you go bring it. If you have to walk 10 miles of neighbors, I know you're a little bit older. Do you want it? Go get it. I'll fill what you bring. Look at your neighbor and say, God will bless what you bring. God says here, Elijah says, here's what God's going to do. Here's the principle straight up. When you do what you can, God will do what you can't. All week, I worked this point. I couldn't figure it out. Late week, it came to me. This is the principle that will change your life. You're believing God for something that you cannot do on your own. Even if you can do it, God can do better if you'll give it to him. When you do what you can, God will do what you can't. He says, you go get as many jars as you want, and the oil will keep coming as long as you got the jars to contain what I want to give. You do what you can. God will do. This woman was broken. This woman's husband was dead, and she could have been stubborn like a lot of us. She could have said, what are you talking about, Elisha? You look at me when I'm preaching a lot of times, I can see it in your face, some of you. I can see really, no, my life, what it's being shows no signs of what you're preaching. She could have said, my husband is dead. And my life is showing no signs that you can do anything. And I'm angry. And this mystical garbage is not enough to fill the hole that is left in my pain. In my life because of my pain. She could have been said, listen to me. Catalyst, we're filled with survivors. How many survivors do I got in a place today? You ain't loud enough. If you're breathing, you're a survivor. But some of you, it's not just you're a survivor, you're stubborn. You're stubborn. And you can be stubborn all day. But if you keep holding back, if you don't go get what God says you can go get, if you don't bring it, God is not going to bless it. If you don't decide that my life is worth more, if you don't decide that my life is worth surrender, not just come to church on Sunday and feeling good, if you don't decide that God, I want you to be bigger in my life and I'm going to do what I can and watch you do what I can. You got to decide that it matters, not me. And this woman was stubborn. You can be insecure all day long. You can look at your mistakes. You can look at the people you've hurt. You can look at the people that you've neglected. You can look at all the things you've done wrong and be insecure and feel like you have nothing to offer. And you know what that's going to cost you? You're not going to bring it, and God's not going to bless it. You're going to be miserable, and God is saying, go get it and bring it to me. You bring this to the altar. You bring what you have, and I will give you so much more. It's simple. Whatever situation you're in, God is saying, do what you can. And I'll come through and do what you can. And this woman could have said, my husband's dead, I'm not doing it. You know, you're wondering why everybody's ahead of you. Whatever age group. I know. I've been there, I've done it. You're wondering why all your friends, you're having to go to their bridal showers. You're having to go to their baby showers. They're finding their person. They're graduating college and getting their big boy jobs. Some of my older people, you see your friends, they're retiring. And what it looks like in your situation is you're going to bust your butt until you die. And you look and you say, and this is honesty, man. You got to be honest before you're able to not hold back. You can say it, be honest. They have been on the same path and made the same mistakes as me. But I'm behind. I got no money. They got money. They made the same mistakes as me. They did the same partying in college as I did, and they're ahead. They get the promotion because they know the people. And you can whine about it, and it'll cause you to not work it. Maybe the people that you're judging because you think they just know people, maybe it's not that. Maybe at some point in their life, a switch flip that needs a switch flip for you. That I'm more than the mistakes I made. I'm more than what I did to my kids. I'm more than the fact that I cheated on my first spouse. I'm more than my financial irresponsibility. I'm more than what I've done. All I know is you're holding back because you truly don't believe you have anything to offer. And you're confused because you're looking at everybody and everything. You're trying to figure so much out, and God is saying, bring it. He told this widow, go to the neighbors, get as many jars as you can. Did you notice what he said? He said, don't just get a few. We're going to get into that in a minute. Don't just get a few, go get it. Because God is not done. Go get it and bring it to the altar. And trust me with whatever you're short. This woman wasn't perfect. This woman had her junk. You can see her insecurities when she says, I don't have anything except. She was trying to make an excuse to go ahead and Elisha cut it off. Oh, you got that? Well, here's what you can do with that. But this woman went and got her jars, and she brought everything to God, and she says, here, you said you'd fill it, fill it. I did my part. I did what I could, and I'm trusting you to do what I can. This is don't stop at its finest. This is not just moving. This is not just one step. This is get out of bed, and whatever it looks like in your life, you go get your jars every day. Look at your neighbor right now and say, go get your jars. Go get it, and God will fill it. Go get your jars. Is it worth bringing all your junk to the table? You're worried about what everybody else thinks. You know why we've made Catalyst a safe place? Is because we've realized that anybody and everybody who walks in here thinks that everybody's looking at them the way they look at themselves. Who cares what everybody thinks? Who cares? Your marriage didn't work out. Your oldest child hates you. You get rode up every week at church. At the job, not church, my bad. I just went there. Somebody's going to come up to me. Were you talking about me? Who cares? When you decide that the only judge that matters is the one who says, mercy, my mercy triumphs over judgment. When you're ready to bring that crap to the table and say, God, all I got, I don't even have a jar of oil. I just got. Y'all know what I meant right there. But I'm going to bring the crap and watch you do your thing. When you quit worrying about, it doesn't matter. Your husband left you. It's not your fault. Oh, well, it's both your faults. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. When you decide the junk doesn't matter, I'm just bringing it to Jesus. I'm going to get in my jars because God's still got something for me, even though my situation has been bad for a long time. At some point, some of you need to quit processing through your stuff. I just said that. Yeah, I'm a counselor. That's what I do. Now that we've grown, we got Tara Davis counseling helping me too. Like, processing is fine, and a lot of you need to do it for a long time. But there's some of you that you're not going to be able to move on. But you still need to move forward. The damage is done. Your story, and here's the gospel. The story, it's not going to sound good, but it's the gospel. Your story is going to be different than if you'd have made the right decisions at 20 years of age and on. That person that hurt you that you need to deal with is dead. There comes a time where you process through it and you deal with it and you say, I'm building a wall here. And it's going to be different. But I'm not going to let what's been decide what's going to be. And you have to build a wall. That's why we've decided in life, and it's said a lot, that there's a difference in moving on and moving forward. Moving forward is it happened, but it's not going to stop me. Moving on is if you move on as if it never happened. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to say, man, I can't figure out the stuff that's happened to me. I can't figure out why they got theirs, I didn't get mine. But the wall is right here in 2020. And my mind is going to change, and my thoughts are going to change, and I'm going to start saying, I'm worth it. And it's not going to stop me from bringing it, because if you don't bring it, God's not going to bless it. God's not going to bless it. You can stay stuck in 1995 if you want to. Life goes on. No, life goes on. It'll leave you behind. I've heard, pastors, now that I'm in my mid-30s, there are pastors that got lazy, hit autopilot, and stopped living 15, 20 years ago. They're still telling stories that their dwindling congregation keeps hearing. And it's not because they have less, it's because they stopped living. They have no victory stories because they stopped living, because they stopped growing. And the same can apply to you. You can stay stuck in 1995, but I got news for you. It's going to hurt, but it's going to bring healing. The divorce happened and your ex moved on. Whether they're happy or pretending to be happy, they are gone. And you can be bitter or you can bring it. You can be bitter about it or you can say, God, I'm going to get my jars. They're gone. You can try to run your kids' parents down, but your kid's parent is gone. But God is not gone. And he says, if you'll bring it, I'll bless it. If you do what you can, I promise you I will do what you can. It won't be tomorrow. It won't be next month. But as you move, what took you years to break down, God will build back up bigger. If you will bring it. It's simple. It's simple, Catalyst. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth being less irresponsible financially? Because here's the deal. You're going to stay in the hole that you're in financially until you start spending your money less selfishly. I'm just going to be honest with you. We believe it at Catalyst. You may not have much to give, but God won't give what you don't grow. We'll say it to the day we drop. Start somewhere. Is it worth it? Because God does not honor selfish spending. And pretty much all of America spends selfishly. From the lower class to the rich of the rich. Start somewhere. Start somewhere. Is it worth waiting, single people? Is it worth waiting and being single, even if it takes a lot longer than you want, not to settle? Because a lot of your lives, you're probably practically ready, or you're close. You're ready for that person to walk in. But going and getting your jars is saying, I'm going to wait, and I'll be single as long as it takes, if that means not settling. I'm trying to help you see your situation, because the details are different. You want to look at my life as proof? Here we go, because I'm proof of it. I remember standing and watching Angie and my kids come in and my brother walk in as my best man. And I remember in that moment, and I want you to know this will be your moment if you don't settle. This will be your moment, single people, if you will bring it and wait. If you will say, God, I'm giving my person at the altar. I'm not moving. I'm going to grow me. I remember thinking it was all worth it. I remember thinking every person that took advantage of me, every girl that told me no, because they pretty much all did. Every Valentine's Day that some cruel things happened to me that I've preached so many jokes about, it was worth it when my person was walking down the aisle. And you may be in a situation that you're tired of being single and you're tired of waiting and you're forcing bad relationships. Let me tell you something. If you will see what God promises, if you will listen to me, one day when you've waited, one day when you brought it and surrendered your life to God and decided I'm not going to settle and I'm not going to waste anybody's time, you're going to see that person coming down the aisle. And you're going to say, God, it was worth it. If you can see that now, and even if you can't see it in reality, you can believe for it. I promise you one day you're going to say deuces. You're going to be glad that you put deuces up to all the bad girlfriends. You're going to be glad. You're going to, in your mind like I did, say deuces to all the girls that had their shot. Deuces to the girls that didn't see my value because of my chubbiness. Deuces! Listen to me, girls, guys. Listen to me, all y'all. Deuces to the bad boyfriends that didn't think I was worth the effort. That's what you're going to say one day. Deuces to the toxic relationship. Here we go. Deuces to all my friends that were just my friends when it benefited you. I'm bringing it. I'm not mad about it, But I've realized in the season of life that Derek and I and our wives are in that a lot of people had to leave it for this to happen. And when you see when you see that God promised it and I'm going to surrender it, it'll be worth it. And one day when you're in the situation that you believe for and it's better because you let God kill some of the selfishness and you're looking at God, this is better, it will have been worth it. It will have been worth it. Social media, y'all, I'm telling y'all something. I've learned, I was talking to my family about it this week watching bowl games. I've learned that social media isn't just an outlet for people to put out there what they pretend to be. I've said that a lot, but it's really deeper than that. It's not just what people pretend to be. It's not just what people use to put out their opinion because they think they have a voice. Social media has become a place where we put out there what we wish we were. It's a place of hurt. I've learned to look at it and it doesn't annoy me. You know how many couples I've seen that one week you're the love of my life and the next week they're in the counseling office or most of them are in divorce court. It's not that people are trying to fake it, it's that they're holding back. Social media has become a place where we put out there what we wish we had. The person we wish we were, the spouse we wish, the marriage we wish we had. The life we want, but it's not a reality right now. And I've learned to look at people and not be annoyed by it, but just to say what that's doing is you're probably looking on social media wondering, why do they have it and I don't? You're probably hating on somebody that they don't have what you think they have. And you're letting the insecurity cause you not to bring it because you don't think you have much to give and God can't do much. Do you know that we use social media like a genie? If I put it out there, maybe my life will shift. No, your life will change when you say, God, I'm going to go get it and I'm going to trust you to do what I can't do. Your life will not change putting on social media what you wish you had. Your life will change when you say, God, I am honoring you and I'm going for it. I'm honoring you and I'm going for it. Listen to me, you're dealing with some grief. You're dealing with some grief, I get it. You lost something that can never be replaced. And it is going to be different. But God still wants to do something special. Don't let your grief of a death, of a relationship, of a divorce, don't let your grief stop you from going and getting your jars. All my people out there that you're like me, you spent most of your life thinking you were stupid because you had a learning disability. You know how many years I spent on the platform and when I said all the stupid stuff and the things that all you guys joke about, you know what he said this Sunday? He said this word wrong. I think Derek laughed at Christmas because I said, how did I say it? It's sorcerer, and I think I said sorcerer. You know how many years I felt stupid because I knew that I'm a little bit slower of a learner. I could care less now. I got a learning disability. I have some things that takes me a lot longer to process. That learning disability, when you decide to bring the jars, you're going to be better for it because you had to try harder. And you're going to have more when you get there because it took a lot more to get there. And you're going to be confident in it. Whatever you're short, Catalyst Church, go get your jars. Go get it. Mental illness, go get it. Go get it. Lastly, I want to say this. David says in Psalms 23, my cup runneth over. Your cup runs over. But you got to contain it. You got to get something. You got to go get your jars. You got to contain what God wants to do. You got some crap you need to deal with. You got some complacency in your life you need to confront because you have done the same stuff. You're stubborn and you're going to get the same results until you decide, I'm going to get my jars because God promises that my cup runneth over, and I'm going to go get some things to contain it so that I can get what God has. Your cup runs over, but you don't have nothing to put it in. And God wants to do it. I want to leave you with this. God doesn't just want to do enough in your life. God doesn't want to give you leftovers. But when he gets done with you, he wants you to have leftovers. What John 10:10 says, for God says, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I've come that you may have life and have it what? To the abundance, overflow. God, when he fed the 5,000, when he fed the 4,000 too, there were leftovers. Catalyst Church, next week, I promise you, we will have a ton of leftovers. Not because we spend too much money on food, but because we want you to know that God is a God of overflow. And when you bring whatever you can bring, God will give you so much more. Bring it! You ready for that, Catalyst? Bring it! God does not want you to settle for leftovers. He wants to give you so much that you're going to have tons of leftovers. And people are going to look at you and they're going to say, if that crazy joker can do it, I can too. But you got to bring it. Will you stand with me? Will you lift your hands right now? Say this with me if you believe it. Say, I give it, God. I'm going to do what I can, and I'm going to trust you to do what I can. Do your thing and make my mess matter. In Jesus' name. Look up at me. You're loved. You matter. And you got some jars that are worth going to get. Next week, the birthday party, we're going to celebrate it. We're going to end this don't stop thing. Actually, it's just beginning. And we are going to see the glory of God as a church. Y'all ready for that? Can you give God that round of praise? God's got something for you. We love y'all. Next week, share it. Put it out there. Let's go.